We're here with Chris Swanson. Chris, Genesee County Sheriff.
That's right.
Founder and leader of Swanson Leadership.
That's right.
Guest speaker and TEDx talk in regards to your national motivational speaker.
Appreciate it.
And you're coming to speak at Reaching Higher. So thank
Once
you for
again,
being here.
Yes.
I know. We're so grateful to have you and to be with you and to have you behind Reaching Higher.
Right on. Because I'm a Susie fan.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're a kid fan, right?
I love it.
We
Yes.
love the kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you have your own story in regards to just reading and researching a little about you. What I didn't know is you had a life-altering moment in your 20s.
Yeah.
It said that kind of changed the course of direction. Can you share that a little bit with us?
I will. And I think when I tell the story, the end is probably much different than what you expect. And so I talk about a home invasion. And, I'm third generation law enforcement. My dad and my grandpa were both Detroit police officers. And I'm the youngest of four, so I got into the business, at a young age, 18 years old.
Wow.
And when I got hired full-time at 20, I went to police academy at 21. This is 1993, 1994, the police academy. There was a time where I just kind of took life for granted, even though I had a great job and I got to the police academy and I was a paramedic and I was working dope teams. And bought my first 8-ball of cocaine at 20 years old, or 21 years old, out of a window. I didn't think you could do that legally, but when you're on a dope team, you can do that. And I just got really dunked in the culture of law enforcement. And that's what I was running for. I met my wife in 93, got married in 94, and, life just got away. But in 2000, I was at home, and I walked through my bedroom, and I saw something that caught my eye. And I looked, and I didn't recognize the individual, and it kind of took me back. And I realized that that image in the mirror was me and what I turned into.
Wow.
And that is, I had lost a little bit of my edge as to where I was as a leader. Physically, I did not keep my edge. And I just got involved in the speed of life versus the quality of life. So I use that as a part of my story to say it was that moment, literally January 1st, 2000, I said, I am changing everything. And I had already graduated with my master's at Michigan, so I had a lot of great foundations. And I had already at that point, I had 7 years on the job, but I decided I'm going to go back and I'm going to physically own my life. I'm going to be a competitor. Now, I got cut from 9th grade baseball, and I didn't compete for 14 years until that day. And so I decided I'm going to start doing bodybuilding shows, and I'm going to start competing, and I'm going to start running marathons, and that led into my Ironmans that I did my first one in 07, and now I compete, and I train 6 days a week, and what I found is, as a leader, everything that you do as a leader in whatever situation, it spills over into other areas. So yes, the long answer to a short question is that home invasion is I let the Chris that I didn't want invade my life to the Chris that I am today.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow. What a defining moment.
It was, yeah.
One of our classes and sessions that we actually teach about is positive life choice, and I think about that choice that you made in looking in the mirror. And one of the things that's inspired me about you is your TEDx talk.
Thank you.
And I can't think of a more rocky time, when we think about COVID, when we think about George Floyd actually getting murdered and the protests that are happening. And then you having one of those in your city, in your home base, and talking about the decision that you made. So can you share a little bit in regards to that situation and just give the audience what you were faced with at that point in time and the choice you had to make?
So this is May 24th, 2020, George Floyd was murdered by somebody who looked like me.
Yep.
That had a uniform that I wore. And the whole country and the nation around us, as well as the world, saw what we all saw for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And it was appalling. And of course, being in this position that I am, it was more appalling because that individual whose name is not even worthy of being mentioned did to that human being something that now we're all paying the price for. And when you talk about COVID, I was the sheriff at the time and still am, and we fed people, we brought medicine to people for 4 months straight, and we were protecting people. And in one moment, somebody who I don't even know destroyed all of that. And we saw this nation just turn into a full-blown protest. People from all walks of life. Well, As the days progressed that week, he was killed on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We found out Thursday afternoon that we were having a protest at the Target at 5 o'clock on May 30th. And, we have had protests before. Flint had its own water crisis. We had people that were protesting, the poison water that was pouring into the city. So we were very comfortable with it. As I mentioned, my dad and my grandpa, they were both in the 67 and 43 riots. So I had grown up knowing what to expect and how to respond, and that is with force. So we did all the plans, and we had all of our battle gear, so to speak, inventoried, our pepper spray, our rubber bullets, shields, batons, our helmets. And then that night before, which was May the 29th, a Friday, I took my wife, because we hadn't been out on a date night for months because of COVID, and we ended up going down to dinner, and we had takeout, ate it in our truck, and we were staying in Royal Oak, and went to bed, and everything was just normal until we woke up. And I normally, because my phone rings all the time at night, I have a backup phone. We call it a burner phone. And my burner phone was there because it's an emergency contact. And when we woke up that morning, what I didn't know is that it was being contacted throughout the night. And one of the contacts was actually her father, my father-in-law. Now, this guy is Mr. Chill, right? It takes him 9 months to figure out what TV to buy. And he's calling. And she calls back, and I could hear on the other line, and she's like, okay. She said, my dad wants to know if you've watched the news. I turn on the TV, and boom, the first person I see was the mayor of Minneapolis. And then I see all the different little vignettes that are going on the TV from cities across the country that are on fire. I mean, Miami and L.A. and of course, Minneapolis, and you had Seattle and Portland, and they're burning CNN, and they're burning Target and the AutoZones. They burned a police sheriff's office in Washington, and it was just this chaos. And I knew that we're having a protest at 5 o'clock. This is now, as I said, 9:30 in the morning. We pack up, and I remember driving back up north on 75, and he calls again. And he's talking to my wife, and she turns to me, she goes, my dad wants to know, what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know. I almost got this apprehension because the roads were still vacant. There's people still at home. There were still people were dealing with COVID. This is 2020, and it was almost like a surreal moment that we're going into battle. So I get to the house, and I call up my command team. I said, we're going to meet at 1 o'clock to plan for the day. We didn't expect on Thursday what we were going to have to handle, but on Friday night when everything changed, we were going to do that. So I met with the team, and we were taking inventory of how much space we had in the jail. I mean, guilty as charged. We were going to respond the way that history has always shown a response. So we leave, we go back to this parking lot, and about 4:30, they're going to meet at 5 o'clock, and literally in the air, we had choppers, we had drones, we were watching social media. We knew where the individuals were planting bricks and rocks and Molotov cocktails. They had caches of weapons throughout the whole path of where they were going, and we had undercover officers in the parking lot. You hear the zipping of circular saws because people are cutting wood to board up their stores. You hear people come by, and you're the Target right there on Miller Road closed at 4 o'clock. They had private security showed up, and you're just waiting for this moment where the clash is happening. And there's a surreal sense, if you've ever been to elementary school or high school or even middle school, when there was a fight at 3 o'clock, and you know what's going down.
Sure.
You know that said, like nothing else can take that attention away. And at 5 o'clock, the first car showed up, and 4 people piled out. They started spray painting the bus station little shelter they had there, and then 4 turned into 40 within minutes, and then 40 turned into 400, and they marched to the east, they marched to the west, they shut down 75 southbound traffic. We blocked cars from them getting injured, and they marched back up the entrance, they marched back to the west, and when they went past us, they actually surrounded a fire truck that was there as a blockade. They passed the fire truck, and they took a northbound shot on a little street called Fleckenstein. And at the end of that street, and you only know it if you intend on going there, is the incident command for the entire operation, the Flint Township Police Department.
Wow.
And as soon as they turned, anybody in law enforcement, that when I say this, you'll know what it means. When you are in your career and Central Dispatch puts out all available units, that means anybody who's not doing something, report there. That's happened less than 5 times in my whole career, and this is one of them. You heard sirens coming from everywhere, and the key was to protect the police department. The thought was they're going to burn it down, and we saw the whole social media. So we all battled up, helmet, shields, batons, OC spray, less than lethal shotguns, and we had the line, and you had the shields and everything. And I remember I parked behind the police department, and I geared up, and I crossed over this little grassy knoll, and I seen this huge crowd coming. We were outnumbered 50-1. And I seriously thought to myself, like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
I mean, we were just like together during COVID and doing all this craziness. Now they're just mother effing us like crazy,
Yeah.
and they want us dead. And it wasn't just one race or one gender. It was like they were just angry.
Yeah.
But as I came forward and, I saw a couple people, and one of my guys had less than lethal shotguns that shoots rubber bullets into a crowd. And I look in the crowd, and there's one guy in a wheelchair. There's young people and older people there. And I'm thinking, this ain't good. So I said, hey, Rudy, I said, tuck behind the car, man. I said, they just don't need to see that shotgun out there. I said it to another guy, Ryan Dobbs, and that name's going to be important here in a second. And he goes, Sheriff, he goes, these guys have guns. And I looked in the crowd, and sure enough, man, they have open carry pistols. Wow. I'm thinking, so it's just going to take one little problem,
Yep.
and there's bloodshed.
Yep.
And I remember there was a buddy of mine that was in the crowd that I thought I could reach. His name was Jeff Hawkins. He's a pastor. 2 kids were murdered in 2 different scenes. And I took out my phone, and I called him up. I said, hey, where are you? He said, I'm in the crowd. I said, don't move. I think I see you. And I said, I'm coming for you. I took my helmet off, and only by God's grace, I can honestly say this. I mean, at that point, I'd been on the job 27 years, and I've seen so much death and violence. Most of what you do, you just do it, as part of your reaction. But that moment, I learned this lesson, and that is always prepare in peace for how you're going to perform in chaos, because that's when your metal's going to be tested. And, even at the studio that we're at, the guy that's running it is a professional fighter. And it doesn't matter what you do in the ring. It's how you prepare yourself before you go one-on-one with somebody.
Yes.
That one is the moment where you realize, am I ready or not? And there's no do-overs. And isn't that true?
100%.
No
So
do-overs.
true.
But I would tell you, and I'll end this because I know that we're going deep in this, but it's so historic, and it's so important to me. When I went into the crowd, I knew I couldn't go in there with a helmet because it sends a bad message. It's how you present. So I took my helmet off, and I walked in. I gave a big old hug, and as soon as I turned around, one of my captains brought a huge guy that I'd never seen before and haven't seen after. Never seen him except for that one moment. He was one of the organizers, and he was dark black guy. And I turned to him, and he was just about to say something, and I said, "Hey," I said, "these guys are here to help you." I said, "That guy in Minneapolis is not who we are. You tell me what we need to do." And he says, "Tell the people what you just told me." I said, "Well, get their attention." And he said, "Hey, everybody, the sheriff wants to say something." And I'm telling you, man, it was just like, they formed a horseshoe. And I just said what came to my spirit, and that is, man, these people are here to protect you. Yeah. I said, I'd like to turn this into a parade, not a protest, not to minimize why they're there, but just to change the psychology of the mindset. I said, that cop over here gives hugs. I said, we're not like that guy. We don't put up with that nonsense. And I said, you tell us what you need to do. We tell what we need to do. And man, it was almost like instantaneously, this group that has never met before said, walk with us. And they started chanting it. And if you've never been in an arena where you have people chanting, not like a athletic chant, like yay, like a chant, like a call to action.
Yeah.
It's like a
walk.
battle cry.
Yeah.
Oh.
As soon as they said it the third time, I took a step back. I fist bumped somebody because I'm just trying to think this is a 50-50 shot. Because I have all the other officers, I'm either going to put them in a bad spot or I don't care. And again, by God's grace, and the Holy Spirit said, just walk. And I said, let's walk. And I said it slow, and I said, let's walk. And I said, let's walk. And I turned, I started walking. And man, they started following. And that guy that I was telling you about earlier, Ryan Dobbs, about 150 yards after that moment happened, I turned to him, and he's all kitted out with his helmet on, and he's got 6 years as a Marine recon, and he's been battle tested. And I said, hey, is the police department safe? He goes, it's good. And I asked this question that was not on camera, that nobody ever has heard, but Ryan and I have this moment. I said, where are the people? He said, Sheriff, they're all following you. And that moment led to one of 40 protests that year that in the city of Flint, we never made a single arrest. Nobody burned anything, no glass broke, no nothing. And within 24 hours, that conversation reached 3.2 billion people, and that was the TEDx talk.
Love it.
It
Love
was powerful.
I think about two things, Susie, that really connects to what we also love to teach in Reaching Higher. I heard two things. I heard awareness of the situation and the environment, and I heard preparedness, preparing. And I think those are, I love that you had both of those elements going into that. I think that's very powerful.
It was, you know what? I love your passion, and you know what? It's like in our class we teach the power in you. What you know that all of us have that power, and in that defining moment that you were just talking, Chris, it was like God came into your heart and He said, "Walk," you know, and you just walked in love instead of hate, and the whole world's walking in hate, and you walked in love, and they followed you. You know, you're a champion for change.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I couldn't do it alone. You know, as I said,
No.
when you are a leader, you're going to be there leading other leaders. And when you are called to do something and it's the right thing to do, and you set the example, then true leadership will follow that. And then you'll make sure that they don't do it in vain. And so there's this tug of war that goes on. And that's why you can change culture is if you have people, just like the three of us, if one out of the three isn't willing to do something great, then we're going to be working against each other.
Yeah.
But if all three of us are in concert, there's nothing we can't do,
Yeah, together we can do more.
right?
Right, make the change. That's powerful.
And I
Really
love
powerful.
that what was going on inside. In other words, you were dealing and processing some limiting beliefs. In your TED Talks, am I the right guy? I'm a white guy. Should I be the one making this change? I'm a police officer. I'm all of that. But you were exactly the right guy, and that's one of the things that we talk about a lot too. Is we all have this negative self-talk. What do we do with that? Who are we going to listen to? So, you talk so much in regards to that fear that had to be there when you're looking at, am I going to cross the line? And about putting your officers, am I putting them at risk? So those are real fears that you had to face and you had to process very quickly as you went through this situation.
Yeah, and I think part of your previous comment about being aware and prepared is it goes back to what I said, is I realized that day people saw who Chris Swanson was his whole life. Like you can't fake that. And when you prepare in that peace setting and you train yourself to respond, you know, the body has two nervous responses, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic response. And we live 99% in that just go through life kind of, you know, I can make things happen because I got time to process. But that 1% of fight or flight, that's what you really show. I was on a mission trip in Haiti. I've been to Haiti multiple times, and one particular trip we learned a leadership lesson. It's called the cup bump.
Cup bump.
Yeah, and he set a cup on the table and he started pouring things in, and he said, you know, as you go through life, you pour into the container that you are, and some of the things you pour in, it's good, some of it's bad, but you're filling it up nonetheless. But through life, as you grow older and you get more exposure, people are going to come along and they're going to bump your cup. And what spills over that you can't control is really who you are inside. And I've never
that's
forgot
beautiful.
that. Yeah. And so that's why whether I'm working with Reaching Higher or I'm doing things for people around the country, around the world, it not only helps others, but it fills me. And to have that awareness and that preparation, that doesn't happen on scene. That happens before you even get there. And that's why it's so important to have a baseline of leadership training, which is what you do at the lowest level in elementary and middle school and high school, because you're building that foundation.
It's what pours over into your life in those defining moments, you know, and you're pouring into the world, Chris. You're pouring into our future. You're pouring into all the kids that will live, you know, beyond you and making the world a better place. And I think that, you know what, when we can do that, you know what, it means everything, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And you know the other thing, you say awareness and preparation and all that, is you literally have 1 second to make the right decision. You know, most of the biggest decisions in our lives are literally just in a snap of a finger. You don't have time to it. So I think the things we're doing, the platforms that you have and what we stand for, just like that TED Talk, you know, it reaches people that I can't reach, but the message remains the same. It's scaling it out.
Yeah. In that TED Talk, you talked about purpose. And you talked about being a unifier, I believe was the word that you said. Can you speak a little bit more to that as far as what you learned after that, walking across the line and unifying that and seeing those results?
So if you look at sheriff cruisers in Flint, Michigan, you're going to see 3 words on the sides and on the back, and that is protect and serve, which is very common for law enforcement. We protect and serve, but I added a third discipline, and that is to unify. Protect, serve, and unify. We've missed that discipline, and that's what caused what I would call the major break during the 2020 riots and protests. And I've said it before, all over the world. I did 158 interviews around the world in 5-6 days, and we're talking different countries and different, the best of the best from Fox, CNN, MSNBC, all those. And I said, George Floyd changed American policing forever because at least it impacted me. And when you add that third discipline of unity, it's our job as leaders to know when to bear the sword and protect. Mm-hmm. It's our job to know when to serve people, and it's our job to know when to bring people together. And you have to pick the right one for the right situation. There's a time that, I'll arrest somebody and, I have, a firearm and I'm trained and we train for active shooters and people are going to hurt somebody. Like, that's the protection side.
Right.
But what about the time you need to serve and bring somebody formula and diapers and you need to give somebody and serve somebody with nothing in return? And then there's the time you need to bring people and say, okay, hey, we're going to do this together. Mm-hmm. And that's where leadership comes in. And I think what we're doing up in Flint and certainly all the different places that we get to touch is when people see what used to divide them, bring them together. And you're talking somebody here who's an elected official. Right. And so add another layer. I'm a white elected police commander in Flint, Michigan. So don't limit, don't limit what you think you can and can't do. There's no playbook on doing right. You can't legislate it. You can't just mandate it. You just got to do it. And don't worry about your background or what you did or what you did. If you have the ability to do right and unify people, that's what you need to do.
That's right.
The world would be a better place if everybody did the next right thing.
Right?
Right? I know. So, Chris, I look at you, so dynamic and amazing, right across from me here, and all the difference and the force for change that you've been in a world that desperately needs it. More than ever now after COVID, right?
Right.
With people suffering with anxiety and all the different things. Tell me about your book, Tin Man to Iron Man. Because I'm seeing this strong Iron Man right across from me.
Thank you.
Tell me about the book, and tell me who would it help, and who would want to purchase that book.
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly not going to do this for promote, but I wrote 3 books actually.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me about
Tin
that.
Man to Iron Man was the first one because when I was challenged in 2005 by Dr. Al Jansen, an ER doc, and he said, "Bro, I just did the Ironman, and there's no drug that I can give that gives me a better feeling than finishing an Ironman, which is 2.4-mile swim, 112-mile cycle race, and then a marathon, 26.2, 140.6, back to back to back. You start at 7 a.m., you got to be done by midnight." He said, when I crossed the finish line and they said, "Al Jansen from Grand Blanc, you are an Ironman." He planted that seed in 2005. I signed up in 2006. Mm-hmm. I was one of 3,000 applicants that filled up in 20 minutes for the Florida Ironman at the Gulf of Mexico.
Wow.
Fast forward, I was there with a buddy of mine, and I was looking at the beach, and I'm seeing this huge, vast, open water, and the cannon blew, and man, I took off, and I get done with my 2.4-mile swim, and I jump on my bike, and I'm cycling for 7 hours, and I get off at 4:30, and then I run my marathon, and it was grueling, and I can tell you, when you come around the chute and you've done 25.6 miles, you're at your last mile to go. And you're just kind of feeling it, and you can see the lights, and you got 26.2, and you're at just, the 7/10 and 6/10. You feel the energy, this endorphin dumps on you. It's called a dopamine dump. And man, as I was coming through, I didn't realize that, but my family was there, and I knew they'd be there, but they had a big banner. And once I crossed the finish line, I went right in the emergency room, and 4 of my Ironmans, only 3 of them that I ended up in the emergency room. One I actually finished. I finished all 4 of them, but 3 in the emergency room. One I didn't have to go, and my family was surrounding me. It's just a brutal thing, but they showed me the banner on the first one, and a guy named Jack Pichette wrote on the top corner of this banner. He goes, "Swanson, you're no longer a Tin Man. You're officially an Iron Man."
Wow.
And that stuck with me because tin looks good, it's shiny, and and it can be formed, but under pressure it crushes. Iron, rusty, dented, scratched, still iron. And so that's the term of Tin Man to Iron Man, and all those Iron Man lessons I learned. And
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And you're still the Iron Man. I ran a marathon, and I thought it was like, hey, I thought, who can run a marathon? I thought, if I can run that, anything's possible.
Yes,
And I did
yes.
it before I started Reaching Higher when I was teaching Carnegie. And I remember the finish line where they had the banner and everybody was cheering for me. It's like, you know what? It's like something that you'll always, always remember, that there's no limit to anything you can do.
No.
And
only you
Yeah.
could finish it.
Yeah.
Running and competing like that is the only, just like, our friends here from UFC, there's no subjectivity. It's either you or nobody else. Nobody could run that race for you. You didn't finish if you went 26.1.
True.
It's the most objective sport out there.
I know. And it's
Good job.
life-changing.
Yes, it is.
You
Yes,
you
it
can do
is.
anything after that, right?
Right.
Yeah, so thanks for telling me about that. It was amazing. So, Chris, there's so many demands on your life. You're busy. You're a motivational speaker. I mean, you're an amazing sheriff. You're a life changer. I mean, you have really made a difference in a life that desperately needs it, in the world that desperately needs it. And, when I called you to ask you if you'd help us with the Reaching Higher, with the kids and with, the adults, it's kids and adults now, you said yes to me. So tell me why you said yes to Reaching Higher.
I think people are listening right now that are truly called to be influencers. We don't have an off button.
Yeah.
And our greatest asset is also our greatest liability, because we want to do so much, and if 10's good, 100's better. And, some people can call that addictive, and I think channeled in the right way, it's more inspirational, because, we have a one shot. I see a lot of death, Susie.
I
A lot
know.
of death.
I know.
And I see a lot of death, of people that think that they were going to go and their whole life was changed, and it's a traumatic death. I've done so many death notifications, and I see so much violence that I literally have a responsibility and honor. And so when people ask me to do stuff, I can't do everything.
No,
but,
I know.
But I do filter through what I can do, and I probably do way more than I probably should, but I got one shot. I'm not going to lose it.
And you know what? No regrets, right?
None.
No regrets.
Right.
And I just so appreciate, you saying yes, because we're saying yes to our future. We're saying yes to the next generation.
Right.
And Reaching Higher prepares our kids for a better life.
That's right.
They give them hope, the
And
hope
I've been
that
on
they
board for a
deserve.
long time.
I know you
I
have.
don't know how many years we've been doing this, but a lot of it is because there's so many great organizations out there. But when you serve other people, we're all in the hero business. I was talking to the Michigan Wolverine team 2 weeks ago, and I did their locker room speech before they mollywopped Hawaii. And I told them, I says, what you do on the football field, of which I've never played, and what I do making the best I can out of violence and sending men and women into battle, we're both heroes.
Yeah.
I mean, we both serve people, and people want to believe in us, and that's what Reaching Higher is, and all those mentors is they are a hero to somebody, and heroes have no days off. And when I said that, Hardball, I didn't realize it, but took notes. He's got this huge board in his office, twice as big as this board, and he's got quotations all over it, and that quote is on his board. Because they don't have any days off. If you put out there that you're willing to help people, then you can't just say, oh, your 911 call is not important to me. I got too many things going on, and so that's why it's important to just keep going. That's why you say yes.
That's your why. That's the why that keeps you going,
Right.
is it? So you know what? With Reaching Higher, I was called to it. I knew it was a calling in my life. I thought, one day I was fast walking and running, and I thought, what? My life isn't my own anymore. And when were you called? When did you feel that sense of calling in your life? Because, you
Yeah.
do it every day. You do it with passion, confidence, and purpose. And that's
So-
what kept me going.
I always knew I was going to be a police officer. I just felt that when I was a kid. And most great cops hate bullies. And we're not the biggest, the strongest, the fastest, but we want to stick up for the vulnerable. And I knew growing up that's what I was going to do. When I became a medic at 20, and I'm still a licensed medic, and I went into people's worst scenarios when nothing else mattered because they couldn't breathe, or when they got hit with a 2017 pickup truck, or they found, all these different scenarios, like nothing else mattered. And so when I walked in the room, I always had the idea, like, you got nothing to worry about now. Swanson's here. And I used to tell people that I knew were dying. When they'd look up and say, am I going to be okay? I'm like, listen, You only have to get nervous and scared if I look nervous and scared. I got you. I mean, I think the calling that I have has been a process, and I love taking care of people. I know it sounds cliche, but I love taking care of people in crisis.
Yeah.
You know, that's where I am probably the most calm, is in chaos. And so my callings have been, you know, whether it's athleticism, whether it's education, or whether it's inspiring people, or, you know, a good case, or arresting somebody that has raped kids in the past that's gotten away with it and now they're held accountable. Like, all those things are like milli validations to just, Chris, you know, just you keep being the sword bearer for people, and you keep sticking up for the vulnerable, and I'll take care of the rest. So that's been my calling my whole life, and literally I'm just getting started.
I know you're just getting started. Thank goodness we have you in this world.
Well, there's more than me.
Our world's in crisis.
There's more than me, but
we need
I'm going to
your
make a
arms
dent.
around us.
Yeah, I'm going to make a dent.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
thank you for helping us. And,
Right.
and you know, we're passionate about what we do at Reaching Higher because we know it's life-changing. You know, and I always say the darkest place in our world is our schools. You know, and what's the most important thing to us in our families? You know, our kids.
Right.
You know, so, you know, it's where we have to pour our energy, and that's why the world's going to be better.
So can I make a comment on that?
Sure.
Yes.
So I took some training, and when they talked about in our culture that when you want to take a culture out, you attack the children. You traumatize them, you harm them, you take away the ability for them to be kids. And you think about that was the culture of breaking down a whole nation.
Yeah.
And you are so right. It's like if we forget the power of, you know, 7-year-olds and 9-year-olds and 17-year-olds and what they're doing, if we suppress that, if we don't have people like you that are out there supporting them, and it's not just one, it's not just the school's total responsibility, but it's schools and parents and all these other support services. Like, this facility we're in is 22,000 square foot of just pure joy to me. It's
Yes.
it's the athletic center, man. I can just smell the sweat. It's all those different checks in the boxes that allow kids to grow up to be the leaders that this world needs. So I agree with you 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, we thank you so much for helping us impact the future, because that's really what we're here to do. You're a man of justice. That it comes through clear. And thank you for Reaching Higher. Thank you for reaching
Thank
higher.
you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for the passion you bring to
Appreciate
the
you
world.
all. Oh,
Yeah. We just got to have it. We just got to have that passion that you have in your heart for making a difference to everybody that can make a difference in this world.
We're going to
Because
do it.
We can do it together.
Thank you.